Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight video on a Areej Le Dore. Basically, my favorite time on the perfume calendar is when new Areej Le Dore fragrances come out. And this is one, there's going to be some good, there's going to be some bad. It's a very balanced review, but I will tell you that I am stoked to discuss the new Arabian Heritage collection. And today we're going to start with Al Oud. Of course, we had to start with the Oud. One of my all-time favorite ingredients now. Oud shot straight to the top. I love oud based scents, and so I had to begin with this one. Keep in mind, this is going to be an early impression video, and so it's not like I've owned a bottle and worn it for months and months or anything like that. This is just kind of an early impression. But first, I have a couple unboxings that have been kind of waiting. I want to give a special shout out to one of my brothers in Fragcom. On Instagram, his channel is AG_frag. So if you want to check him out, you can. He sent me this right here, which I'm going to unbox and show you. And so let's knock this out real quick here. Let me show you what he sent me. He sent me the Amouage Attar set. I need to get on it and discuss these. So there they are. The Amouage Attar set that I've often said, man, I only have a couple more Amouages to review on the channel. For example, Sunshine Man, Gold Man, Lyric Man. But that's not true because we also have the Attar. So never ends. And someone is very kindly sending me the new Amouage set. Samples anyways to smell, so I'm excited to try that as well. But the journey never ends. And then there's one more unboxing that I wanted to do before we hop into the early impression on Al Oud, and this is from John, I believe, so thank you, John. Very, very kind, my friend. I'm just gonna rip this open. I'm just gonna Hulk it barbarian style. Okay, so here's what John sent me. Okay, so we have let's try this again. King Cobra by Zoologist, which I've been very excited to try, and Sacred Scarab, which I have not reviewed yet on the channel. And then this is a vintage Jean Desprez fragrance called 40 Love, which I've actually heard about before. Never smelled it before, but I'm really excited to try that. So 40 Love is a fragrance from 1947 it originally came out. It's supposed to be a oriental floral chypre with some animalic touches. And Jean Desprez is a house that I really rate. I have reviewed a couple things like Bala Versailles and stuff like that on the channel. So I'm very excited to try 40 Love. And I think this is 40 Love. I'm not sure if it's 40 Love Pour Homme or 40 Love. I guess it's 40 Love Pour Homme. I think that's the only one they did. But, okay, we'll say 40 Love Pour Homme. Okay, so thank you, John. So, thank you to my perfume god people who let these reviews continue on with your generosity. I really appreciate your kindness. So, to anyone who's ever sent me something, I will say, please be patient. As you can see, I have that. It literally feels like 1,000 frags waiting to be discussed on the channel. So, it's just a matter of time. Sometimes some things get pushed right to the front, like Al Oud. So let's talk a little bit about this new Arabian Heritage collection. As I said, we had to start with the Oud. So this is basically called Al Oud, and it's based on Adam's love for traditional style Arabic perfumery, if you will, okay? And Al Oud is basically like saying the Oud, okay? So it's kind of like how athletes say the Ohio State University or whatever when they're being introduced on Monday Night Football. Adam says he did this because he came to realize that oud is like the top ingredient. Anywhere he traveled in the Middle East, it was oud. And not just any oud, but Indian oud and Cambodian oud. And those are the 2 stars of this show, hands down, okay? So this fragrance basically opens up with a very realistic oud note. So, you know, if all you've smelt are Tom Ford's Oud Wood or Versace Pour Homme Oud Noir, anything that's made by LVMH or Puig or any of these houses, they can eat their heart out, because this is how a proper oud fragrance should be done, in my opinion. This style of oud, okay? So the very first thing that's going to come to mind if you have some experience with ouds is that this smells like an oud soliflor. So basically this smells like an out and out oud, and there's a reason for that. Now, keep in mind, this is not an oud soliflor, so this is not just oud. This is supposed to be an entire composition, but it smells like you're putting pure oud oil on your skin. I did a spray, oh gosh, I don't know, about 3.5 hours ago, give or take. And so you can see that you can almost still see it, I think, on my skin from just, I don't know if you can still see the stain, but it is dark juice, okay? And so this smells like you're putting pure oud oil on. And the reason it does is because this is 95% pure oud oil, right? Now, remember, when I reviewed Les Indemodables Corps de Oud, and they were like bragging about 1.2% of the formula oud, this is 95% pure oud. 95% pure agarwood. So that's why it's going to smell like a pure oud soliflor. Now, it's going to open up with a lot of different notes at first, right? But basically you're going to get hit with this very cheesy, woody, barnyard, Indian oud style oud with this hints of like burning bakor, okay? So you're going to get little bits of the incensey oud traveling over here, being burned. Just imagine, here's the image this came to mind. Imagine standing on your brand new deck in your backyard, and the deck is cherry wood in color, and it's just freshly stained, and the deck is made out of pure agar wood, okay? So you have a pure agar wood deck, and you're standing on it with your friends, smoking some hookah, sharing coffee, you know, sharing stories, and the deck just got stained, and you can almost smell the turpentine, or this turpentinic-like smell of the stain and the wood underneath, and this very cheesy, gritty sickness being exhaled from the wood with every single step that you take, okay, on your brand new deck. But the reason it reminds me so much of a pure oud soliflor is there actually is a pure oud soliflor that Russian Adam put out, and it was called The History of Indian Oud. And what's so fascinating about this is if you take a look, you'll see this is 98% pure oud. So in Al Oud, it's 95%. So that 3% reduction, I think, allowed him to maybe try and create more of a composition, because the whole idea with the History of Indian Oud collection is that it was supposed to be it was supposed to just be oud in perfumer's alcohol. It wasn't supposed to be a composition. He was just supposed to present oud to you. And he, in my opinion, he has proven that oud can be a fragrance in and of itself. It is complex enough. Even though these don't transition like a perfume, they will change over time as it sits on your skin. And so Al Oud reminds me the way that these History of Oud fragrances wear, right? And if you take the History of Indian Oud, and if you take the History of Cambodian Oud, and you mix these two together, you've got a majority of what basically Al Oud turns into. It shares features from both releases, basically, okay? And if you can just imagine, while you're sitting out on your deck, made out of the oud wood, which you'd have to be a very rich man to do, but let's just say you did, next to you is a flower bed. But you don't smell the flowers, at least not yet. What you end up smelling is you get this hit of this freshly laid fertilizer, this like compost smell coming to your nose. And it smells very natural, but almost leaves you thinking, you know? Personally, has brought up something very interesting in the live stream that I watched today, which I don't get a chance to watch very many perfume-related videos any longer. But he said, the perfumer Rodrigo Flores-Rue said something very interesting. He said that a good perfume should be like a pebble in your shoe, something that makes your brain go back to it over and over again. You realize the pebble every time you step. To me, that cheesy, funky, animalic, fertilizer, barnyard aspect of the Indian oud is that pebble here, and it's beautiful. Now, 3.5 hours in, 4 hours in, almost, it's starting to wear down, and you're starting to get this smoothening out aspect, but that cheesy, funky, animalic, fertilizer, fermented aspect of the oud, that's very important. Indian oud is soaked, and you get that fermented aspect because of the way that it is, that it's prepared, basically. So now, a brief backstory on the history of oud collection. Like I said, these were not meant to be perfume compositions. They were meant to showcase oud in perfumer's alcohol. So basically, like being able to spray pure oud oil on your skin. And that's the very first thing that came to mind when I smelled Al Oud. It smells like this blend. It really smells like you're just blending pure oud oil of the Indian variety and the Cambodian variety. And in the top, one of the things that you get is you're supposed to get a little bit of bergamot and just a little bit of Kinam oud. Now, Kinam oud is basically the most expensive type of oud. What throws people off is that a lot of times Kinamic style ouds are minty and fresh and airy. They almost have this violet leaf, weird sort of ozonic thing going on. I've reviewed this. I've reviewed all of these history of oud collections. I think I'm the only one on YouTube who's reviewed the history of oud collection individually. So you can go check out. And this is actually an oud wood cap, by the way. Not Kinam oud. The cap would be thousands of dollars on its own, but just some sort of oud variety, let's say, which I think is very, very cool. Anyways, the top layer of Kinam oud that Russian Adam put into Al Oud is basically supposed to add this minty cloudiness on top, like this ethereal layer that, something that like allows the clouds to part before really coming to the part that's oud, oud, and oud, which is the rest of the fragrance, basically. So now, I mentioned specifically when you're sitting on your deck that there is this cherry wood stain or cherry wood color to the wood, because there is this fruity aspect that comes to you in Al Oud, and it's actually the exact same fruity aspect to what I smell in the history of Indian oud. But I don't want you to think some fruity note that you might smell in like a new Tom Ford release or something like that. I don't want you to think that this fruity note is being synthetically injected by Russian Adam, like there's some cherry note that he added in here. No, it's not like making a Sonic drink where you can just add a little bit of cherry syrup or something like that. Not at all. So here, the cherry note is emanating. Basically, it's coming straight from the oud wood, and that's what makes this even more special to me, is that this deep, rich, almost like ancient smelling wood, like a chest being buried, like some ancient chest from Napoleon's time that just got buried underground hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and now all of a sudden it's dug up and some of the chest is rotting away and all that stuff, but the contents inside are made for an emperor. That's the feeling of this thick, rich, ancient cherry wood smell that has this unrivaled ability at the same time to come across to my nose as having that cherry-like smell, but not like this maraschino preserved cherry, in like sweet syrups. No, this is like a deep, rich, ancient, smooth cherry smell. And that's the part I think that really wowed me, is that sort of smoothness, how it all came across, how it all blended together. It's almost as if a master perfumer went in there and just worked on that part of the scent specifically over and over again until it was absolutely perfect. But that's not what happened. This was basically just nature. This is just how this oud note smells. Most of the funky animalic ouds can have this dirty bit that can put some people off, like this sour, unwashed dirtiness, this animalic bit. Here, the whole way through, it just feels so unbelievably smooth. Like it was blended to an inch of its life by a perfumer, but it wasn't. It was just done by nature. There is also the cherry aspect to the wood comes across as having like this cherry wine-like feel, almost like cherry booze, or what's the liquor? Amaretto. amaretto. If you've ever had amaretto as a drink, amaretto is like a cherry liqueur. But it's almost like, you're sitting there and you're realizing that something as soft and gentle as water can cut through mountains and shape the world. You're having these type of thoughts while you're smelling this type of fragrance. Oud to me is very meditative. It's very like after the end of the day, you put something like this on and you just, but I would definitely wear this as my scent of the day. It's beautiful. So anyways, so yes, you have the fermented Indian oud. You have little bits and pieces of this yeasty smell that start to come through, this sour, funky smell. And all of these ingredients seem to travel deep into the dry down. As I said, I'm about now 4 hours in to spraying this fragrance. And, that's so one of my biggest beefs with these Western style houses trying to do an oud is that they present you with a oud note. And a lot of times you'll smell it in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then it'll disappear. And the fragrance will take a left turn, right turn. It'll turn into something basically completely different. It'll go down a completely different path. That oud note will disappear completely. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, a proper oud note should be used in the base, because oud is one of those long-lasting materials that goes on and on and on. It works beautiful as a base. But for that to happen, oud has to be used in very large quantities. And most of these houses, they want to get away with using the smallest, tiniest possible quantity of oud that they can, but still give you a little bit of it in the opening, and then they pull the rug out from underneath you. Here in Al Oud, this oud note makes up the base. It is the base of the fragrance. That's how it should be to me. That's how a proper oud fragrance should be presented to you. Now, as I was saying in the beginning, there's two major oud notes being in here: Cambodian oud and the Indian oud. The Indian oud is what comes to you mostly in the first couple hours, and then once you hit hour 2, 3, 4, you're going to really notice more of the Cambodian oud, and that's the other major oud that's burned in the Middle East, that's widely loved across the Middle East. One, and as I said, one's the Indian oud, the other is the Cambodian oud, and then the Kinam oud I showed was just kind of, I think, a little bit in the top to sort of just introduce you to the fragrance. As I said, imagine like clouds parting. Okay, now this is where it starts to get tough, because I don't know which notes are attributed to which ouds. I can guess, but I will tell you that there starts to be little bits of pieces and little touches of leather start to come through. Like the oud smells slightly leathery. And I would say that you'll get little bits and pieces of tobacco start to emerge. And at different points in time, you'll start to get little bits and pieces of this soily, earthy aspect start to emerge heavier and stronger. And as time goes on, that smooth sort of cherry wood that you're smelling in the beginning starts to turn more into this like cherry, as I said, boozy cough syrup like smell. And I think that some of the nuances of Cambodian oud sort of begin to influence the trajectory of the fragrance, almost like how astronomers can kind of tell if there's a star present because of the wobble of the planet. This starts to really pull the fragrance in a little different direction. And don't forget, so when I say that the oud is smoky, or that it has this incensey quality to it, I don't want you to think charred, because I don't want you to think like there's this black charred aspect to this. Not at all. The smoke in here smells as if the oud is being burned, it smells like it's being burned on the lowest heat possible. It does have a smoky aspect to it, an incensey aspect, but it doesn't feel charred. It doesn't feel like you just took the oud and put it on a barbecue. No, or a fire. No, this is like slow burned. And the smoky aspects here start to feel almost like you get a little bit of a gasoline vibe, almost like a clean burning fuel underneath the earthiness. So imagine inside of this chest that I mentioned, Napoleon's chest from hundreds of years ago. Imagine it's buried underground, and that's where you get that earthiness, that soiliness, that dampness of the woodiness starts to come through. And if you can just imagine like a machine running off of this gasoline that I'm mentioning and like spitting out the smoke on the back end, right? And so you have the gasoline being used and you have the smoke being sort of ejected, if you will. So as time goes on, the fermented aspects of the oud start to kind of degrade and dissipate. And what comes to your nose is the cherry sort of being burned with this volatile, earthy gasoline vibe coming in. I think when I reviewed the history of Cambodian oud, I mentioned that imagine like a chocolate cherry being burned by a blowtorch or something like that. That vibe does start to come through a little bit. But there's just enough of that funky animalic bits peeking through, even late into the dry down, to remind you of the war that the tree went through, this fight for its life, if you will. Maybe the tree even won. Maybe there's like, you see scars on a person if there's like a major injury or something. You know, maybe these are like the traumas of the tree healing from this infection that it had. And you have to remember, oud is a fight for survival. So it is the tree literally fighting for its life to survive. And we get to smell that struggle sort of bottled here. That's what this is about. This is smelling the struggle that these trees have gone through. And I mentioned in a previous video, you know, you watch any National Geographic channel and you see a zebra or something being pulled down by a lion or something like that, the zebra doesn't just lay down and say, okay, eat me, you know, it fights, right? If you get infected with an illness, does your immune system say, well, we've lived long enough, let's just give up now? No, it's going to fight to survive, right? And so the zebra is going to try to escape until it can't basically anymore. Life fights until the very end. And real oud is like capturing that moment in scent. That's basically what real oud is like. It's like capturing this moment that these trees have gone through, and we want them to be infected because we want them to give off this beautiful scent. But on the other hand, there is a struggle that brought us to that point, and that's kind of what we're smelling here. That's what I love about oud. So now, I've heard some rumblings in the community about some folks saying Adam's kind of mailed it in. These don't have the complexity of some of his previous offerings. I will tell you that I think the biggest knock that you could make against something like Al Oud is that it shares much with the history of oud collection. Um, if money was no issue, would I own a bottle of Al Oud? Hell yes. 100% absolutely. As an oud lover, this is the type of oud offering that I want to be wearing. You know, $395 for 35 mils, I believe is what it was. And you think about some of these pricings from some of these houses, LVMH's oud, pure oud at $2,000 or whatever the hell they sell their stuff for now. It's no comparison for me. I mean, you know, I would definitely own a bottle of this as an oud lover. Now, I could just wear the ones I currently have in the collection. So you could argue that maybe this is a little bit redundant if you already have the history of Indian oud or the history of Cambodian oud like I do. But as someone who wants to properly study oud, I can't think of a better offering than something like this. You know, or the history of oud collection. These are the type of ouds that I would recommend. And so that I think is the biggest downside, is that it doesn't have this new complexity. It goes back to something that he kind of did. To be fair, these were very limited offerings, though. This history of oud collection, and so because of that, if you missed out on the history of oud collection, then this could be a chance to potentially grab a bottle. I did see that it said running very low on the website, so if you're going to grab one, I would say now's the time. You know, I will also mention that I think it's impossible to do a full review off of just a wearing like I've had tonight. You know, sometimes I'm thinking, man, are there some chocolatey aspects here or something else that I missed or whatever it is? But then I get to thinking, you know, I feel like I could do this review 6 months from now and still feel exactly the same way because it's so complex and so, you know, once you smell oud done in this style, you'll know exactly what I mean. The Western style ouds will never be able to compete, never in a million years. So yes, I mean, that's kind of my take on Al Oud. Let me know if you've had a chance to smell it. I would love to hear your thoughts. And really enjoyed getting to know this tonight. I'll try to talk about the other ones pretty soon as well, which is Al Ambar and Al Sandal. So yes, and then I've got a very special ranked Areej Le Dore video that I'm going to be doing very soon. Probably a top 20. I haven't really 100% decided yet, but probably a top 20. And it will include full bottles and decants, just my top 20 Areej Le Dore fragrances. So basically like a sort of like a ranked family portrait, if you will, for the House of Areej Le Dore. I've never done that before. That's going to be my 11,000 subscriber celebration video, which we're probably there now, or we will be there, you know, by the time I wake up tomorrow, probably. But anyways, that's my take on it. Let me know your thoughts. As always, it's a pleasure. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers, guys. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.